I was just curious if you were the one that taught that.
Well, we don't know whether that class will be taught either, because of enrollment issues. It's always the same, issues.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm doing right now is, I know you guys are still working on your CUPS project, but I do want to finish off 120, so that we can officially move on to 121. So 121, as many of you have known, because I've seen that most of you have logged in already in 121. The first topic of 121, besides getting refamiliarized with all the concepts, is Kerberos and LDAP. And I chose this topic to begin with because it is a fairly heavy-duty subject, but it is also kind of important from the security standpoint and also from the organization standpoint. So this part is already released, and I did one thing today. I went through my notes, I went through all the documentation, and I created a Google Doc. So if you looked up here, text explanation of Kerberos, it's my network is it's still picking me up frequently. So I have no idea why it's doing this. You mentioned in an external program you were using Route. Yeah, that didn't seem to help much last time. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not connected. Drop me out already. Nope. Oh, it's having problem with the DNS server. Nope, not connected. It's kicking me out. I got a way to fix that. Not fix it, but just gotta go online using my cell phone. Probably, but I don't know the nature of that, so I have to find out why it's doing that first. This to USB 0. Change the properties back to dynamic. And I'm on. So let's see whether this one will kick me out or not. Okay, I'm back online. But looks like I forgot one thing that's important. Okay, I can show you the documents as soon as I log into my Google account. And by the way, I think Google Doc is one of the best resources. If you're always on the go and you have to work on any type of document, this is really one of the easiest way to manage everything.
We've switched over to Outlook for email, docs, and everything.
Yeah. But the district is thinking about doing
it's actually working very well. I was surprised.
So do you guys have to buy your own Google
We
Docs?
use a business plan.
Okay. So do they give you the box or rent you a box?
Give you everything. You can share the documents with the corporation. You can log in anywhere. And the emails are off. I keep company's names still.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Yeah, docs, everything.
All right. Okay, so here we have a little Google Doc, and I'm using this. It's called it's kind of like a chart to explain the protocol of Kerberos. And you guys will be doing Kerberos, starting on Wednesday. So that's why, I think it's helpful to explain this part. If you just watch this or just read this portion, you're not gonna, I would not be able to figure out what it means. Okay, so what Kerberos is a way to do authentication, so that you can get Surface from a Surface server. I know the font is not big. So what I would do, I just kind of point it. So here's a client, which is typically a client computer, and here is a Surface server, which is a Surface providing server. And the service can be anything, anywhere from cups printing to file serving like Samba, to just regular authentication for logging in. Okay. In other words, this is a machine where somebody wants to log in, and how do we know that person actually has an account and match the password so that that person can log in? So the first thing the client machine would do is to get the username and the password from the user. Okay, so that part is not surprising at all. The second thing this client computer will do is to generate what we call a client user secret key from the password. In other words, whatever your password is, it will use that password to create an encryption key. When we talk about Kerberos, we are not talking about key pair encryption. We are talking about symmetric encryption. In other words, we use the same key for encrypting and decrypting messages. Is everybody with me so far? So we get the password, and then we use the password to create an encryption key. And then what we do is we don't transmit the password. The one thing that makes Kerberos superior to all the other ways of communicating or authentication is the password is never transmitted. Okay? So the gray line here, in step 5, this part says transmit plain text ticket request to the authentication server, which is column E, including the username. In other words, it's plain text, but it's no big deal because all we are saying is user blah is now requesting authentication service. Okay, we just want to authenticate. Everybody can see it. When the authentication server gets that message, the first thing it will do is to look up the username in a database or an Active Directory. Okay, and here comes the kind of obscure part. The obscure part is, if the authentication server does locate that username, then what it will do is it will create or generate a client/TGS session key and include that in the TGT, which is the ticket generating ticket. Okay, so this is a ticket-based system. Everything is done by tickets. Okay. Now this part is important. I put a little star here because it is important, because the session key is generated on the fly right here. Okay, so another thing that Kerberos is good for is it is completely, well, I wouldn't say completely, but it is immune to network sniffing. You cannot just replay a certain transmission to log into a server, because every single time the session key gets changed, it is generated on the fly. Now once it has the client/TGS session key, it will encrypt that key using the client user secret key. In other words, the very same key that we generated using the password of the user is also used to encrypt the client TGS session key. That gets transmitted back to the client computer. And we'll also transmit one more thing. It will also transmit the TGT, or the ticket granting ticket. sorry, it's not generating, it's granting. So it's called the TGT. And that one is encrypted using the TGS secret key. The TGS is the ticket granting server. Okay, so are we still doing okay in terms of terminology? And you can see that I use different colors. Now, when you look at the colors, the yellow color belongs to the client computer. And anything that is encrypted using the client/user secret key is also in yellow. Is that okay? You can see that the TGS, or the ticket granting server, is in blue. So everything that is encrypted using the ticket granting server encryption key is also in blue. So I'm using the color coding so that you can see, what message is encrypted by which key. When the client receives this message, what it will do is it will use the secret key of the user generated by the password of the user to decrypt this message here, and as a result, it will get the client/TGS session key. Okay, so now the client not only does it, it will, from now on, it will only use the session key for communicating with the TGS. So it will transmit the TGS and the surface ID to the TGS at this point. In other words, it will say, okay, I want to contact the Samba server for something. But instead of contacting the Samba server directly, it is contacting the TGS and tell the TGS and say, okay, I want to get Samba service, give me a ticket so I can talk to the Samba server. Okay. Now I know it seems to be very indirect, but there's a reason why it is indirect. It will also transmit one more thing. It will transmit what we call an authenticator, and it is encrypted using the client/TGS session key. So that one is basically, it will include additional information of what do we want from the Samba server. And you can see the beige color is the client/TGS session key, because there will be another session key later on. When the TGS, or the ticket granting server, receives this message, receive the beige one, it will decrypt it using its own key. Oh, excuse me, I take it back. When it receives the blue one, it will decrypt it using its own key. So now the TGS will also know the client/TGS session key. Now you need to make sure that both parties have the session key before they can use the session key to encrypt further messages. Okay, the client gets the session key from here, and then the TGS gets the session key from here. But who generated the session key? The session key is actually generated by the authentication server. Okay. And now we have more session keys, because what the TGS will do is it will generate a client/service session secret key and include that in the ticket. Okay. In other words, the KDS, okay, the key distribution center, is like a middle person, okay, and it will keep the two parties separated all the time. Okay, so it's kind of like me, in the classroom, and let's just say that those people outside are clients, and you guys are servers. Okay, so normally they will contact you directly and say, okay, I want to get this file, or I want to get this web page, or I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, because the client typically will authenticate to a server directly. But that's a problem. There's a problem here. Because if they transmit their actual password to the server for authentication, and the server itself is compromised, guess what? The server now gets their password. And if they use the same password for everything, now whoever owns the server would also know how to hack into all the other servers that these clients they want to connect to. So instead of having that to happen, I am the KDS, I'm the middleman. Okay, the middleman has two parts. The first part is the authentication server, and the second part is called the ticket granting server. But these two components work very tightly together. So for the most part, they live on the same machine, usually, but not always. So now what happens is, for any one of those people to request a service from any one of you, they don't contact you directly. Okay, we now have a ticket-based system. Okay, when they try to get a service, the first thing is they have to authenticate, to me first, because I am the centralized authentication, center. So they will authenticate to me first, and if I can prove the identity and say yes, you are in the database, I will give them a little ticket. Okay, when they hold on to that ticket, it means they are authenticated. Now, just because they are authenticated does not mean that they should be granted access to your service, right? So the next thing we want to do is to say, okay, now that I'm authenticated, I want to request a file from this Samba server. I want to log in to the Samba resource on this particular machine. Okay? But just because you're authenticated doesn't mean that you have permission to do that. But instead of having them to contact the Samba server directly and say, hey, I'm an authenticated user, let me in and I want to access that folder, I'm sitting in the middle. I'm saying that, well, if you want to contact the server, you can do that, but you're not going to authenticate yourself to the server directly. Instead, what you will do is give me a request to that server. I will look through that request and make sure everything is encrypted. If everything works out, then what I will do is I will create a ticket at this point here. Okay, so what I will do is I will create the client service ticket and transmit that back to the client. So they will get a second ticket, as a result of that step. Now, once they have that ticket, they can now contact the server directly. But the whole point is everything is transmitted. They, as clients, never transmit their passwords to a server directly. It's always authenticated against me. And everything is encrypted. If you look at all the messages here, except for the first one, which is in plain text, the first one is in plain text, simply saying, tag wants to authenticate. But that's all. There's no password in it. And all that is contained in the plain text message is my username and the request. The request to authenticate. Is that doing okay so far? So when we scroll down the list, we'll see, basically the second half of this story. So here's the ticket. You can see the green line, the bright green line, just kind of wraps around here, because when the client gets that, the client will retransmit that back to the service server, whoever is actually providing the service. But the client will also transmit something else. The client will also transmit the new authenticator using, now it is encrypted using the client service session key. Okay, so every time you see a dull color line like this one or this one here, that's encrypted using a session key. And the session key is generated on the fly. So that means, what does that mean? It means even if someone spent a lot of processing resources to crack the encryption of the baseline and also the gold green line, it's not going to do them any good. Because this is a session key that is generated on the fly. And guess what? On every single ticket, there's an expiration time. It's going to expire in 5 minutes. If they cannot crack the encryption in 5 minutes, it's useless. You can do it in an hour, but by the time it is cracked, it's useless. It's pointless because the session key has already expired.
Wow.
So it's a pretty good way of doing things to keep all the parties isolated. The servers and the clients are completely isolated now. They don't clients do not authenticate against the servers completely anymore. And the whole point of this protocol is it can be implemented on an untrusted network. Now, what network can be trusted? Let me recast that question. How can you guarantee there are no disgruntled employees? That's my question, basically. Okay? And this network here, this type of protocol, will work over, open Wi-Fi. In other words, everything can be transmitted over open Wi-Fi, and it is still secure because all the transmitted content is encrypted, and the encryption is based on session keys that are generated on the fly. Any questions about that? The general idea of Kerberos. When you read this, you'll probably get a little bit better and more idea of how it works. But that's the essence of Kerberos 5. With this version 5, the earlier versions were never released. They will only use the internal to MIT. But Kerberos 5 is now released, and a lot of Linux systems use it too. Any questions? Any questions? The next of your project will also involve LDAP. What is Active Directory? I know most of you know what is Active Directory. So what exactly is it? It's a hierarchical database. That's basically what it is. It's a tree of items. That's pretty much it. How do we use LDAP? Or what problem did you run into in your last Samba homework assignment? Let me just go back to the Samba homework assignment, point to the point that I want to make so that you guys know what I'm referring to. Now, Kerberos is good because it is very secure and it does not assume the network itself is secure. But what is LDAP going to buy us? Samba is here. When you look at the last part of the Samba homework assignment, we have a problem. And I said the problem is to be expected anyway. Well, there are actually two problems with this.
The authentication and
right here. If you just read the highlighted part here, that's one of the problems. Okay, this one is not a security issue. It is, hey, who is user 1002? UID 1002. Who is that? Is Eagle. Yeah, but it's not Eagle on my system. It's Eagle on your system. Eagle on my system has a UID of 1001. What is the source of that problem? As you guys went through this homework assignment, what do you think was the source of that problem? How come Eagle of one system has a UID of 1002 and on another system it is just 1000?
it has to do when they were created, correct?
Exactly. The order of creating these users is different. Okay? Because the system by default is just incrementing a number. The next one will get the next higher number. So depending on the order of creating the users, the same name may have a different UID. Okay, but Tag, you taught us how to use, add user and specify the UID explicitly. Wouldn't that fix the problem? No, it won't fix the problem. It won't fix the problem because no one can anticipate ahead of time whether Eagle will get created on this system or not. Okay? So that's why we have that problem. What is the second problem that we have with this homework assignment? That one has to do with security.
The authentication.
Well, not the authentication, but the permissions. Okay? What is the problem with the permissions?
You were saying it inherits the server's permissions.
it inherits the permissions of the mount point. Excuse me, I take it back. The permission of the file system to be mounted overrides the permission of the mount point itself. Okay? In other words, in this case, it is possible that I have, see here, GO minus RWX. That means for group and others, I'm removing read, write, and execute permission. In other words, I am locking down the mount point /media/ego as much as it is possible. But yet, when you go through the exercise, you will find that the permission of that mount point gets changed after the mount command executes. And that's because on the server side, on the server that is actually providing the file system, the permissions are all set differently. Okay? So what kind of problem can that get you into?
Lack of
Big problems. Okay? So let me explain what the big problems can be. Someone is going to say, yeah, well, technically that's possible, but surely no one will do something like that. Well, I assure you that someone did something like that and did not fix it in time. And we have no idea the actual scope of the damage, but I can just tell you that it happened. So this part is a little bit harder to explain using just text. So I'm going to turn off the projector, but I will keep the recorder going. And I'll switch to dry marketplace. So that's in the way. Okay. So let's think about backing up, computers, backing up servers using a centralized backup server. Okay? So let's just say that we have that's not backing. So we have a backup server, a centralized backup server that is responsible to back up everything. Okay? It's got gobs and gobs of storage, and that's why we use it as a backup server. Whoever set up the backup server is saying, well, since I will only let one person log in to this backup server to improve the security. Okay? It has one single user that is allowed to log in to the backup server. Okay? So from the perspective of the administrator of this system, it is already protected. Okay? I make sure the password of this user is really hard. Okay? Because there are lots of tools to help you assess the strength of a password. Let's say this is a really strong password. Okay, there's no way someone can crack this password using brute force. Okay? Well, because of that, nobody's going to be able to get into this server, or crack the password. I'm just going to set the permissions as this. For everything. Okay? In other words, the owner has permissions to rewrite, but everybody else, will just be able to read and execute. Because I'm not even anticipating there will be others in this system. Remember, this system has one single user. So if you only have one single user, what good would group or others do? Nothing, right? Yep.
I was going to say, if you were only anticipating one user, why wouldn't you just shut the whole thing down all the way? Because if someone did crack the system, couldn't they?
Well, if someone did crack the system, then the permissions won't help you anyway, right? But that's the thinking. That's the thinking of the person who's administering this particular system. It's like, well, since there's only one server, and I'm using a strong password, it should be fairly safe. And the permissions to the files do not matter. Because I'm the only one who can log into the system. If someone grabs my password, it's all mute anyway. Because if someone grabs my password, it doesn't matter how these permissions are all set, that person will still get to the content. So that person who's setting up the permission is thinking, well, that's not even important. I just leave it as the default of owner can read, write, and the group, others can just read. Okay, for the most part, execute is access within. It goes along with read for directories. Okay. Is that okay so far? So now we have these different computers, okay? And I'll make two boxes. One box is a top secret box. The top secret box is a server that stores, really sensitive data like social security numbers and all the other good stuff. Okay? The other one is, I'll call it exposed. Okay? In other words, users of this system are kind of questionable. Okay, we cannot, or I cannot verify the security clearance of people who are using this system. But people who have access to this server, they all must have a certain clearance level, so I can trust those users. Let's just say that we don't have any disgruntled employee from the inside trying to steal the data. Okay, so we eliminate that factor automatically from the start. Except on this one, we don't have anyone we can trust. These users can be just about anyone. Are we doing okay so far? Okay, so now we have 3 machines. Well, how are we going to back up the content of these individual servers onto the backup server? Option 1, sneakernet. Sneakernet means we'll install a tape drive on this box here. We'll back up this server onto the tape. We run to this computer, put the tape in, and then store the content of the tape on the backup server. Sneakernet. Option 2, we plug them into the network and then use soundbar. Which one do you think that person, the administrator of this system, is going to do? The very same person who thinks, oh, well, we'll just set the permissions this way because it's not important anyway. Ethernet or Ethernet?
Does the administrator have a lackey?
Who can be trusted? Yes. Yes. Well, most administrators will say, no, we're not going to do Ethernet because it's just a lot of hassle, right? So we'll go with the soundbar method. The soundbar method means these will all be connected together using a network. Let's just say that this is a intelligence switch. There's no way this system can see the traffic from here to here. So we are fairly secure. Network sniffing is not going to find anything. Okay? And let's just say that that person who's setting up everything here will basically say, we'll run a script on top secret, and the script will mount backup server onto a certain mount point of top secret, copy the files over, and then unmount it, just to be sure. Will that work? It will work. Now, but there's one problem here already. There's one exposure. The exposure is if we want to mount backup server as a mount point on top secret, what do we need? Don't you need the username and the password of this user?
Yep.
You do, okay? So that means somewhere on top secret we'll have the credentials for this one single user. But that's okay because we can trust everybody on top secret. I just said it already. Is that okay? So now top secret gets backed up onto this backup server. There's a folder for top _ secret, and under that, we store all the files on top secret. Is that okay? Now we turn our attention to exposed. Exposed has questionable users, remember. But nonetheless, we want to back up those files. So the administrator who set up top secret and back up top secret is copying the same script over to exposed. And right away, we have a problem. The problem is the exposure of the credential of this one single user on exposed. Don't you? Okay. So we have the credential here. And then someone is going to say, oh, that's okay, because we know that we are supposed to protect the credential file. We'll turn the protection of the file to only root which is the owner of this file, can rewrite it. Everybody else cannot do anything about it. Does that sound fair enough? Okay, so let's just say that this one is protected. The credential file itself is rwx dash 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 dash. And by the way, this was not how it was set up. it was not protected like that. The way it was set up originally was the mount command containing the password and the username was run as a script. You guys remember in your homework assignment, you used two different methods to do it. The first time you did it, you used the username and the password as a part of the mount command to mount the soundbar mount point. And then in the homework assignment, I said, no, that's a bad idea, because when you run that mount command, right at that moment, someone can type ps-af, and that person can see your entire command line. Not just mount, but also your username, password, and everything else. Even if that command takes a fraction of a second to run, someone can potentially catch that one fraction of a second and see the username and the password. So that's how this was set up originally. It was part of the command. But now I'm saying that, okay, let's just say that that person is smart enough not to do that and use a credential file instead. So now you can catch the mount command itself, but it won't disclose anything. It will disclose the location of the credential file, but that's not going to help you because that location is locked down already. So it should be fairly safe. All right? On this system, because everybody is trusted, the mount point, permission, and stuff like that, nobody cares. Okay, because all of these employees are trusted. The same script was copied over to this system. Now we have a big problem. What happens when this server is mounted onto this system? What happens to the permissions of the mount point?
They
It's all going to be
inherit.
inherited from
They
here.
inherited.
Which is all going to be
Read
R-W-X, R-X, R-X. Okay? So the content of the backup server is now exposed to exposed. Okay? Well, that normally is not a big issue because if exposed has questionable users, maybe the content on exposed is not that. There's not much to protect. Okay, maybe it's just a whole bunch of web pages, homework assignments and stuff like that. But what else is on the backup server?
The entire top
The
secret.
backup files of top secret. So during the backup operation of exposed, one of the untrusted users can now traverse the tree back up to top secret on the backup server and actually grab the backup files of top secret. But that would not have been a problem if that is encrypted. In other words, if the content backed up into here is automatically encrypted, yeah, sure, you can download the entire tar file, but it won't do you any good because you don't have the decryption key. Okay? But no, it was just a regular tar file without any type of encryption. The first thing a questionable user would do is to go to top secret, go to root, the root folder itself, not slash, but the actual home of root itself, and look for credential.txt. Because remember, that file has to exist on this machine. As a result, that file has to be backed up onto this computer too. That file is now exposed to this untrusted server. An untrusted user can go back, go to the backup files, not of exposed, but of top secret. Go to the root folder, go get the credential.txt file. Now once someone grabs that file, everything is exposed. Not only can the hacker get the entire content of top secret anytime they want, they can go in and pollute the content of top secret as well, which is even more nasty than just stealing, because when you corrupt a database, or when you poison a database, very bad things can happen. Suddenly so and so just got a deposit of $20 million into a Swiss account. What happened here? Do you guys see all the problems with this particular scheme? It actually happened. I cannot name the names of the people nor the organization, but I can assure you that it did happen. What are the problems of this approach? Exposure, exposure, exposure. A lot of unnecessary exposure. Okay? So how do we do this? We know that this part is not a problem, because the top secret server only has trusted employees as users. So we can mount anything without any protection, and since I told you that you can trust those employees, nothing bad is going to happen. The problem is, how do we back up exposed? What do you guys think? How can you back up exposed without needing the credential of a user on this backup server? In other words, how can we make it a one-way street? There's no way for someone unexposed to utilize the credential of a user on a backup server, go back and hack the backup server.
Could you run a script on the backup server to connect to the...
You got the right idea. You start from the backup server. It does not start with exposed and say, hey, go ahead and mount the backup server locally to this mount point. It goes the other way around. The backup server will have a user, whoever, doesn't matter, remote into exposed, run the tar command on exposed, and get everything back to the backup server. I mean, sure, you still need an account, don't you? But the account is local to exposed. What if that account is compromised? Would that account be used to go back up to backup server? No. That account can only be used to compromise exposed itself, but top secret is safe. Okay? And SSH can be used for this purpose. Now, SSH is useful too for many other purposes, because when you have SSH, what if this is an open Wi-Fi network? If it's open and your network protocol is not encrypted, what happens? Someone can sniff everything. Okay? But what if you're using SSH?
It's encrypted.
They can still sniff it, but it's not going to do any good because the content is encrypted. So there are several ways to make this system much stronger in terms of security. One is you use SSH and you start from the backup server. You log into exposed, using one of the accounts on exposed. So then you still need one account on exposed to be granted the special permissions to run tar as root. Okay? And there's a way to do this. It's called sudo. S-U-D-O. We haven't talked about sudo yet, but sudo is a very neat tool, because what sudo does is it allows you to designate, okay, let's say we have an account name called operator. And this is a very common name for that sort of thing. We have a user called operator, which is created just like any other user with very limited permissions. Okay? What sudo can do is say, well, I can grant operators special permissions. Sometimes operator can do stuff that usually only root can do. Okay? So how much control do we have? Lots of control. We can say operator can only run the tar command to create an archive as root, but nothing else as root. So operator, yes, it has some privilege to run certain commands using the root permissions, but we can limit what commands operator can run as root. So that means, someone from the backup server can use SSH to log in as operator onto exposed, run sudo and tar, capture the tar content, back up onto the backup server, and back up the system this way. What happens when someone steals the password of the user account operator? That person will be able to run tar locally on exposed, which basically means exposed is compromised. But it won't go back to the backup server. There's no exposure back to the backup server.
Because it's just a local account.
Yes, because operator is a local account. Now, I can use any account on backup server to log in as operator to exposed. But that information doesn't go back. In other words, someone on exposed can never really know which account I used on backup server to log into exposed. It only goes one way, it doesn't go back the other way. Now, the second thing that can improve the security of this whole system is to encrypt everything in. Let's put a big tab off on it. Oh, I think the lock key, the keyhole is reversed. But put a big tab off on it. In other words, as soon as the content of top secret is stored on the backup server, use GPG, encrypt it. Okay? So that way, even if someone gets hold of the archive file, the content is not going to be there. You need the key to decrypt it to get to the content. So that's the other thing that can be done to improve the security of this overall system.
So GPG is an encryption command at the terminal or at the command line?
Yes. In this class, we don't talk about GPG because it's kind of more of a security topic. But it's just like BGP is a play of the name, but it serves the same purpose. It's a key pair encryption thing. So you keep the secret key and then you expose the public key. So anyone with a public key can encrypt content is sent to you, but only you have the private key to unlock the content. So only you with the private key can read the content. And we can easily use GPG in this particular system. So use SSH in the transmission, but once you get to the server, use GPG to encrypt the content. So now there's no way someone can steal the content in transit. And even when it is stored and someone will physically steal the hard drive, they still cannot get to the content because it's encrypted. Okay? On top of that, if you want to be really paranoid about this, you can also use encrypted LVM. You guys still remember LVM, the big nightmare thing when you first set up your virtual server?
Yeah.
Remember when you first set up, there's an option to set up LVM encrypted? What that means is the entire partition is now encrypted. Which is good in a way because if someone physically steals your machine without the key to unlock it, it's just a hard drive. They can always just reformat the whole thing, but they won't be able to get to the content. The bad thing is if you forget the password to that encrypted partition, there's no way to get it back. Okay? So you can actually stack your encryption on top of encryption on top of encryption to make sure that this system is secure during transit, stored but online, and also even offline. And none of that was done with the Benson system. I think a database dump of some 1,200 or something social security numbers was exposed. There was no way for me to track whether someone did actually get to the database. I was only able to prove that I could do it. And then when I told the administrator that, well, this is not good, see what I can do, they go like, whoa, that is bad. So what they did was they locked down SSH. They disabled SSH. They thought the security hole comes from the fact that I can run shell scripts. Then I did it with PHP. And they actually disabled PHP for a very short amount of time. until people just ran down their door and try to kill a few people in there and say, you cannot disable PHP because a lot of web pages depend on PHP. Then they actually have to study something and figure out how to protect the system. And that's why we have that topic too. Because I think it's very important for you guys to remember when you mount something onto a mount point, the permission comes from the foreign imported file system. You can lock down the mount point all you want locally, it won't do you any good. Is that okay so far? So that's basically the last topic of cisn121. And it's a very natural follow-up of the Samba homework assignment, because this addresses one problem of the Samba homework assignment. When we talk about Kerberos and LDAP, it will address the other issue of the Samba homework assignment, which is can we have universal user IDs? And the answer is yes. We can use LDAP to implement. Because I want to make sure that you guys connect all the pieces. Because when we work on the homework assignments, there are so many details that it's easy for anyone, myself included, to lose track of. I'll just follow the next step, but I have no idea what it is doing or how it connects to everything else. So I just want to make sure that you guys have a chance to step back a little bit and make sure that you understand how all these points connect, because it is that connection that is important. The details, you can look up your tutorials and the reference manuals and stuff like that and find out how to do. But the concept is, I think, the more important part. Any questions? Any questions? I do have instructions, for the SSH, deal, this whole thing here. So you might want to read through that at least, run through one or two experiments, just so that you know how to do it. Because I think it is useful information. But we are not going to do that homework assignment because we are already in 120, 121, and so we need to kind of move on and move on to 121. And then on Wednesday, we'll have the homework assignment. We'll have the Kerberos/LDAP homework assignment. And I'll do some more video recording when I'm home. Because that's a big topic and there's a lot of details involved. If you don't like typing, you're not going to like this homework assignment. There's a lot of typing, where a single typo will mess up the whole thing. Any questions? Any questions? Any problem with the CUPS homework assignment? Some. The only thing that won't work is LP info. LP info -B, is not going to show the printer. I tried as many times and tried many different options. It still won't get exposed, even though the printer is actually available. It still won't find it. So for some reason, they must have changed to LP info, the command itself, because it used to work. It doesn't work anymore. That was the only thing that would not work, but everything else in the homework assignment I verified it should work.
Okay. When are we uploading the tar file?
Let's not worry about that just yet. I still have to figure out how to, check all the homework assignments. Now I can answer questions. Turn off the mic. Sure.